Welcome. Inside Elite, and we're back today. Super excited. Not only do we get to do another show this week, but we have a very special guest, Sally Hollier, on today to talk about all things wealth, as in the things that make us wealthy, abundance, love, health, all the really cool stuff. Jamie.
That's absolutely exciting. Welcome back, everyone. Sorry that it was my fault last week that we weren't on. I was helping support Richmond Din in his amazing, incredible, outstanding boot camp. So I was other little bit disposed there. But this week, my God, to have Sally on here sharing with us this knowledge, all these impactful things, and really, everyone, please listen up. Sally's got some amazing, incredible information to share with us here today that can quite literally change your life. Sally, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate you having me on here.
So, Sally, let's start off. For everybody that doesn't know who you are, tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, what inspires you.
Yeah, awesome. So I'm a mum and a wife, and I am a co-founder to the WELLth Collective, which is basically a personal development hub online tailored to meet people where they're currently at on their journey, just a community really of like-minded men and women who are on their journey to self-discovery. They're raising consciousness together and creating a life, like you said, that's more wealthy, WELLTHY, which is a life created or exemplified by abundance, happiness, purpose, health, and joy, and all of those things that make us happy from the inside out. So we're really just about educating and inspiring people to make simple and sustainable changes in mindset, in health, relationships, career, and in life. So yeah, those things really light me up. I started on a personal development journey of my own about 12 years ago. That was a really, I suppose, big awakening point for me, a pivotal mark in my life, where I was a gymnastics coach for almost 2 decades, so loved working with children prior to doing what I'm doing now. Absolutely loved, not only, it was never about teaching of the cartwheels, it was about watching a child evolve from start to finish, knowing their own, having self-efficacy, knowing that they had the ability to do something regardless of what somebody else thought, or knowing their worth regardless of somebody else's opinion. And that kind of was just my day-to-day life. I didn't really recognize that I had such a passion for helping young people in moving forward in their mindset until I started my own personal development journey. That then led me down the path to recognize how my upbringing shaped me to be the person I was. And then that made me really find a place where I wanted to dig in and really continue to help families to, and more so probably the children, but I guess where that starts is with the adults clearing the slate so that their children have a blank surface to grow upon, rather than the stories and beliefs and conditions that we raise our children under, and then they go to live their life by those rules and stories. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
I love that. The one thing that, and when you said it, I noticed a certain emphasis and a certain feeling around the word. You use the word community. You've created a community. Tell us about that, and especially in this time right now where, so many of us in the world, we have been somewhat taken away from those communities. We're not able to really connect in that here you have this amazing space, this amazing, incredible place where people can go and connect. Tell us about that meaning of community for you.
Yeah, look, I think it's one thing to be on a journey of self-discovery. It's another to be on a journey with a network of people who are on that journey with you. Anybody who's embarked on a discovery or self-development journey knows that at some point you feel like you may be separating from your general community or your general connection. And I suppose, purely because of the conversation level that you're having, and so when it's no different to talking about two different topics. If somebody's not educated on a certain topic, you can't have a conversation with that person about that topic. So by being in a community where everybody's participating in the 2 live group coaching calls that we have each week. We do new moon intention calls. So we set everything around zodiacal cycles, and every time there's a new moon in a new sign, we kind of hone into that energy to focus on that part of our life. And so we start off with a new moon intention call. We set our intentions for the next 28-day cycle. We have 2 live group coaching sessions there, as well as everybody, sharing what books they're reading at the moment, or what wins they're having. And I suppose that's what's important, is feeling like you've got a home away from home sometimes. And we certainly encourage families on board. We certainly encourage you to grow that way of thinking in your own home and in your own network. But in the meantime, we create a beautiful safe space for people to grow.
And that sense of community, and you said there, is absolutely important. When I love community as well, and when you're in business, having that sense of community in your team, or having that sense of community your business is a part of, is really, really important. And having those like-minded people that you support and work together with, whether it's in your life or in business, it's absolutely critical. And you said something early on about helping people raise their consciousness. And I think the first step to any journey is being aware of it, or having a challenge, or being aware of it, or something that's a particular personality trait that's might be causing problems for the way you communicate. But the first step is raising that consciousness level. And how have you found, or what's probably the most important thing you've had around consciousness, or how to raise your consciousness? What's probably the first step?
Yeah, I think awareness is definitely, it's the starting point. I think there's 3 main points in your growth journey, and I think awareness is definitely that starting point. I think I started off in a workshop. First and foremost, I did a 4-day retreat, which was incredible. It was certainly a great experience. I then went on to do a little bit of Tony Robbins' work and Scott Harris's work, and it's been an incredible journey. We then continued on with Planet Personal Growth, and it's been wonderful. I think there's no wrong place to start. I think it's just pick up a book, start a podcast, go to a bloody retreat or a workshop, do something. I don't know a single person who has done any of those things and not come out of there with a little bit of a mind open. I think the point is just start. And that can be super uncomfortable as well, because in most cases, when you're sitting back and you've never started this journey, and somebody else that has, they come out of there and you're like, oh my God, are they part of a cult, or are they high, or what are they high on, right? Because they're super pumped. And so that can be really intimidating when you've never started your journey, because you're just like, holy shit, what did they just do? What did they go away to? So there's a part of you that's pulling you, that going, man, I want that. But there's another part of you saying, I'd rather just stay in my comfort zone. Like, I'd rather be uncomfortable in my comfort zone. So
yeah, love that. And yeah, be uncomfortable. Because all great things, they're just one step over that comfort zone. If we're stuck, if we're in bed, right? We're in bed and it's a cold winter day outside and we're all snuggled in and everything like that. It feels great. It feels really wonderful. But all the gold is on the other side. It's getting out of that bed and feeling that first initial chill of the air until you get warmed up, until you turn on the fireplace or whatever it is to get warmed up, to get you out, because it's on the other side of that comfort that all the rewards really are. I love that. I want to come back to the young people, working with the young people and giving them or helping them have that blank slate. Now, without taking too much information from you here, that really caught my ear. Can you tell us more about that, of, I guess, really how you help to create that blank slate so that you can set a whole new paradigm for those kids?
I think the biggest point in regards to this would be having the awareness that I've created a life based on my upbringing, based on what I believe is true, what I perceive is true, based on my perception. And between the ages of 0 and 8, if anybody's done any type of PD, they may have heard this in the workshop. Between the ages of 0 and 8, it's when everything's wired in, right? They're big sponges and they take everything on. And then past that point, we relive every experience based on a memory that we've had in that. And I think what's important is that we start our own journey to question things. So when something comes up, when I'm upset about something, when I'm faced with a challenge, or when I'm faced with an opportunity to progress or digress, I sit there and I can question, what are my stories about this? Are those stories serving me? Is there a chance for me to recreate a story, start a new story, be open-minded about there might be a different outcome that is possible with this, rather than what I know to be true based on my past experiences. We always, as parents, I'm a mum to 3, and I for sure know that in our home, when the personal development journey started, I was like, that's it, I'm going to cure my kids, like I'm going to fix my kids. It was never about that. And same happened when I owned a gymnastics club. We kind of went through these levels of like, okay, cool, we're going to fix our staff, but it's never about that. It always starts with you. And I think the clean slate starts with you, because if you're the kind of person who has very strong beliefs, but an inability to be flexible in the way that other people may see things differently, then you're shaping them to be a certain way, including your children. And so when I started to work on myself and started to question my own beliefs and my own story, then it allowed me to see where I was limiting my children to be open-minded, to challenge the status quo, to maybe have a different belief than myself or my partner. And that's where it started. We really started to see the benefits of cleaning the plate, because we really recognized that they were going to believe whatever we said. We were the people that they trusted. We were their support network. So what we said, they took as gospel. Instead, we wanted to teach them to challenge it. Challenge what we said.
That's amazing, Sally. And as you know, I've got 3 kids as well. And when we started the same personal development journey about 5 years ago, we were like, right, and I love the way you said, oh, we need to fix them, which has a whole lot of stuff that came up too. But we're like, right, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, we've got to do that. And it's more about like just raising the awareness and giving them the ability and the tools and skills to develop their own stories and their own journey, and rather than forcing them in a direction, or letting them have choices, and not saying, well, this is what you have to do because I say so. These are your options that I can put in front of you. What do you want to do? Like just changing the way we communicate and the way we open up is a really, really big thing. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges or lessons that people start in the personal development journey, is they want to fix everyone around them, but the very first thing that does is that's a story, because you perceive they're broken because they're not the same story as you, or you've got a different story about that. So it's not about fixing anybody. It's about just presenting an opportunity if they want to step outside their comfort zone. So what's probably been, and I know this is challenging for lots of people that start a personal development journey, what's probably one of the biggest hurdles that you see with your clients or with yourself when someone starts a personal development journey, that the biggest sort of challenge that comes up?
I think for me, it's the quietness. We're so used to being so busy, and I feel like it's easier for us to be uncomfortable in our comfort zone than to get outside of our comfort zone. Being quiet for a lot of people is super hard, right? They want to stay busy. They want to stay distracted. They don't want to feel the feelings. They don't want to hear the truth of what might be behind a situation. And so in most cases, being quiet is hard enough. I've got stuff to do. I've got kids to look after. I've got a partner to attend to. I've got jobs to attend to. Who's going to clean the house? And it's not about that. It's about creating small, sustainable changes that then over time become, we can go to the gym for 3 hours and then not at all for the rest of the year, or we can go for 30 minutes every day, right? Or every second day. It's about small, attainable, achievable things. But for most of us, we want the result right now. And then when we hit that point where it gets a little bit tough, we're like, oh, whatever, like I'm not cut out for this. Life is already hard, and now I'm going to willingly bring on extra challenge to break through. Like, that just sounds ridiculously stupid, right? Because you're actually inviting challenge into your life because you have to go through it to get to the peace on the other side. And so somebody who's overwhelmed, tired, frustrated, pissed off at the world why would they naturally or willingly invite more challenge? Or because challenge for me, like growth to me can, or some people can seem like challenge, why would they willingly invite that into their life? So it's about having a vision for what is on the other side, and knowing that breaking through that challenge might be hard, but it is so worth it. Like 12 years, I'm still goosebumps at the moment, 12 years, and I've had some really face down moments. But I would relive every single one of them to be in the space that I'm in now, where, I can, like you said, we can raise our family in a way where we're empowering them to, think like adults. We're not raising children, we're raising adults, we're raising the next generation. But yet we're hell-bent on being in control and the parents, and you'll do as I say and when I say. And I'm not saying that they don't need to have respect, you don't need to have boundaries, and same goes in your workplace. But there is such a gift in letting people live true to their nature. And in our workforce and in our family, we really notice that when we harness people true to their nature and highlight their gifts and their talents and their strengths, they're unstoppable. It's far easier to run a business and a harmonious household when they're living from their, light side instead of their shadow side and being dragged to do stuff.
Absolutely. Well, was there a time, I'm curious about this, because now it's easy. Now it's something that's almost second nature. Maybe it is even second nature, right? We've got to that level of total, unconscious competence where you do it without even thinking of it. But when you look back on that journey, do you recall there being a time where you switched from it being something foreign, new, hard, into something like, wow, this actually feels really good? Do you recall that at all, out of curiosity?
Yeah, I think that I was very true to my nature. I'm very reactive. It works in my favor when I'm in a situation where I need to problem solve, because I can move very quickly. But as a parent, children need space, and as an employee, staff need time to process information. Not everybody's where you are right away. And because of my natural reactive nature, before in my shadow, I would have been aggressively reactive. And my ability to understand that my reactive nature doesn't serve everybody else helped me to understand that if I could take a step back and pause, it would allow them space. I recall as a parent not reacting, and my children were like waiting for the reaction, and I was like not reacting, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine." And they were like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah, good." And they were like, "Are you going to get cranky?" And I was like, "No." And they were like, "Why?" And I was like, "Why not?" Right? And those moments are kind of like the reaffirming of why it's so important to do this shit. Because the change in them, again, between their young years, they were used to and created a story of me reacting a certain way. And when I no longer did that, they had an opportunity to create a new story. And yeah.
That's a really powerful moment, especially when it involves your kids, because that's a really, really powerful emotional attachment. That's an amazing story. Amazing like point where you can stand back and really reflect on that. And for me, when I had noticed when things become second nature, to leverage off your question, Jamie, it wasn't a particular point. It was just a moment of reflection, and I was like, I've been doing that for the last month and I hadn't even noticed. And it was happening unconsciously more so than consciously, and it was a post-reflection. I was like, I don't even remember when I started doing that. Like, it's just, you just started doing things like that, and I couldn't remember a particular point. So for me, it was like it just happened over time, and I didn't actually realize, because you're just implementing these things and consistently doing them. You mentioned something before, and it's a really popular topic in leadership around like giving people the space, and the way you like you're reactive. I'm quite reactive too, and letting people be where they're at and empowering your family the way you're raising, and they're all really, really powerful topics in any leadership. Every leadership book you've got has got those type of topics in it. And so for business, having that, being a leader is really, really important as the business owner, but also being a part of a team is really important to be a leader, have leaders at every levels. So do you consciously raise your kids to be leaders, or do you consciously, or is it just that they're the same qualities and it's just a synergy?
Yeah, I suppose in my mind, I don't set out to raise them as conscious leaders. I instead embody what I would like to see in somebody else, and I go first. And I think that's, rather than me telling them what they need to do, I have a level of self-integrity to do what I say that I will do. And that then allows them to be self-integral. We're very open on communication, and I think that's important everywhere, not just in the home, but I think in every area of life, to be able to take on the feedback when I'm not showing up as the best version of myself, and they're able to share that with me, but they very well know that I expect them to show up as the best version of themselves as well. And so it's like you said a little bit before, we get around kind of wanting to fix everybody else like they're broken because we perceive that, them doing something different to us is broken. It's very much the same in this sense that we're allowed to have down days. We're allowed to have face down moments. We're allowed to have tough times. We're allowed to feel the emotions and go through the motions, right? But when we are maybe not being or showing up as the best versions of ourselves, then we together as a family support each other to raise that level, to like get up and show up how we want the other person to. And so again, that kind of comes back to that community of when you have a community that wants it for you as much as you want it for you, then they're there saying, come on, like, it's cool, go through the motions, but it's time to get up now. Like, get off your ass, let's go. Maybe you're not showing up, or, hey, wow, like, I don't know how you're feeling. I don't know what's going on for you right now, but the way that you approach that, I felt like there might have been a little bit of whatever in it. Do you need some support? But it's never, do you want me to fix your problem? So in our family as well and in our workplace, it's how can we support you? Not I'll support you like this, because again, you're disabling, you're enabling them to think for themselves and show up for themselves. A question of how can I best support you means that they actually have to, one, ask for the help, and two, be able to receive the help. And that's a really strong part of growth, is being able to ask for and receive help, and not just wait for somebody to rescue you and be a victim to your circumstance.
Love that. Being able to ask for help. What's really great is I was listening as you're speaking, and all of a sudden, the massive congruency that came through is I'm hearing words. I'm hearing you share certain words. It's like, I've heard that. Why? Because it's some of the very values that I have in my company, right? You said leaders go first. Do what you say you're going to do. Be open to communication, have open, clear, honest communication, transparency, and then also open to feedback. And what's really great is, regardless of where we are in the world, here I'm in Canada, you're in Australia, those key leadership qualities, they just come shining through, which is just amazing. It's hearing my own company values coming right back to me, which is just so great. To get that feedback, to have your family open to it, to have your family open enough to say, okay, can I really share this with mom? Can I give it to her? How long from when you started to where they actually really truly became comfortable in doing that? Was it a fairly quick transition? Did it take a little bit of a while? I'd be curious.
It took longer for me than it did for them, because they are, at this age, they are 9, 8, and 7. So, or 9, 7, and 6. So for them, it was easier because they're only just, within that realm of still kind of taking my lead sort of thing. For me, it was harder because I had to lay down my sword to want to fight them back, right? To want to be right, because we're brought up with this mentality that if you're not right, you're wrong. If you're not a winner, you're a loser. And for us in our family, we really try and say that, like you have wins, and then you have lessons. Like, it's not losers, it's lessons. And then you have, and there can be a win-win situation, right? And then it's not that you're wrong, it's just that we perceive things to be different, right? Like, and so I think for them to be able to shift, like all of us, and I'm sure we all go through this stage, we want to abuse it and we want to be like, well, if I have the right to say what I want, well, then you're really going to hear about it, right? And doing it kind of not really in the most on-center way. And so, again, that was a process, you know, like having to allow them to find the balance of speaking your truth without being hurtful in your words. Very different. You can speak your truth and come from a place of heart and have the other person's best interest at heart without being a dick, you know. So I think that that's really important to allow them to feel that themselves. But on the flip side, the receiver, you have to be okay with them finding their way as well. So it wasn't overly, an overly slow process, but it was certainly a constant process. Did you think of them not feeling like they had their cup filled? And then, you know, for all of us, we have to find our center first to be able to support or hear anybody else's feedback. If we're off center and somebody else tries to give us feedback, we take it as, you know, them trying to attack us. Whereas when you're on center, it doesn't matter how the other person says it. You're able to receive it in a way that, you know, serves you.
That's absolutely spot on, and I don't think I've ever had that explained like that. When you're on center, you can take feedback, because I've been in situations before where you've given feedback and you've given it from your heart and it's nice, and all of a sudden they think you're trying to attack them and they criticize and it starts an argument. And then in the same situation, I've received feedback and it was said very nasty, like, oh sweet, I'll take that feedback on board. And it's because you were centered and your cup was full, and it didn't matter how they said it. You're like, oh, okay, I need to take that feedback on board. There might be some truth in that. Let me just analyze. Let me just process that for a bit and see what I can do. If that's how that's being perceived, what can I change so it gets perceived the way I intended? That action or that whatever I said or whatever the feedback was about, you know. So it's really, I've never heard that before. That's a really, really I suppose valuable, and just something that struck home there about being on center when you receive or give feedback. It's super important.
There's like for us, I think, like for me, there's three really pivotal parts I was saying earlier on, and awareness is the first one and responsibility is the second, and taking radical responsibility that if it's to be, it's up to me. So you're not gonna give me feedback and then I'm gonna come back and blame you for being, you know, for the way that you gave me feedback. No, I'm just gonna take radical responsibility for how I receive it. The same goes for when I deliver feedback to somebody else and they take it the wrong way. Yes, it's up to them to, you know, to take it a certain way. But if I take radical responsibility, then I can ask questions like, how do you feel about that? Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that you're hearing what I'm trying to say and that you don't feel like I'm attacking you. Like, again, you can constantly take radical responsibility for how you're showing up and how you're receiving how other people are showing up without ever blaming, shaming, justifying why, you know, something is a certain way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I've actually just read a book called Extreme Ownership, and it's about leadership, and it is based on that whole principle. Is about taking extreme ownership. Don't blame. You need to, when something doesn't go right, you need to first look at yourself. If your team doesn't perform, they didn't stuff it up, or maybe I wasn't clear enough the way I communicated that, or maybe I didn't provide the support they needed to be able to be successful in that role or that job, or maybe I wasn't, whatever it is. You need to have a look at yourself first and take ownership of that, and it actually builds respect and builds trust and builds. It's not taking the blame, it's just taking extreme ownership of the situation, as opposed to, or radical responsibility, to use your words. It's a really, really powerful concept.
Yeah, I love that. That idea of making it yours, really taking true responsibility for the situation, whatever it is, good or bad, right? We've got to take responsibility when it's good too. We've got to celebrate those wins and really recognize it. If it's bad, we've got the opportunity to look at really what didn't work. And those are some of the greatest gifts. That's where we get some of our absolute biggest, most massive growth, is when we really dissect that. What didn't go as well as expected? Right? Where did we, you know, kind of shit the bed, for lack of a better term? Where did things not go right? Because it's in those moments when we figure it out, when we take the time to actually understand it, we can build better SOPs, we can build better processes so that when we move forward, we never have to experience that same thing again. Sally, I'm curious, do you have an example of something that you could share with us that's maybe some great practical knowledge for the viewers, the listeners, and the people watching, of when you utilize this principle? Is there one particular time or thing that comes to mind where you utilize this radical responsibility and everything changed from that?
Yeah, for me, it was about working with. So in most cases, where possible, I do my best to work for myself because that's the kind of person I am. I maybe have a higher expectation on myself on how I'd like to show up than what maybe other people do. And so I tend to find myself better working for myself, with other people, collaborating for sure, but kind of setting my own tasks. Now, in this particular instance, I was collaborating with another company, and I was constantly waiting for them to get back to me. I just took it as an opportunity to take radical responsibility on where can I create a space, or what can I do differently to allow them to have the time that they need to show up, but at the same time respect my boundaries, that I'm not sitting wasting 2 days waiting for them to get back to me because I assumed that they would get back to me, or I assumed that that they would just show up as quickly as I would show up. And so we go back to that clear communication again. I didn't take it as where the hell are they? I took it as where can I speak more clearly? Where can I express what my expectations are more clearly? Or where can I set stronger boundaries? Where can I set stronger boundaries to ensure the smooth flowing and the the less wasting of my time waiting around for somebody else to get back to me? It's not up to them. They're not lazy. They're not irresponsible. They're not rude because they didn't get back to me. They're not whatever. They're none of that. Where can I show up differently? How can I do things differently to make sure that the environment's set up in a way that it serves me as well? And then am I responsible for making sure that it serves them as well? To a degree, I'm going to say yes, because I want their continued business. But at the same time, it's up to them to speak up and say, I'm not going to have it to you in 2 days' time. Okay, great. Let's negotiate then further. Again, it's just about clear communication. I think when I was able to take that on board, the perceived emotions that could have come up around that situation completely deflated because we were able to resolve it.
That's really powerful, and I think, like you said, the key part of that was that self-awareness to go, okay, and that radical responsibility. Where can I do this, or where can I take an ownership of the situation? How can I do something differently to communicate better? Or you're straight away, you're not going, what can I do to make sure they send me back the information quicker? You're doing stuff with yourself. You're not trying to fix their problem. It's not a problem to them. It's only a problem to you. So that's really, really powerful when people start to understand that it's only a problem for you. So you need to fix the problem inside, not fix their problem or communicate better or whatever it is. So that's really, really powerful. And I think if, as business leaders or business owners, or even as parents, if we can all take that, if your kids aren't doing what you ask them to do, well, what can I do to ensure they understand my expectations here? You just, instead of going, the kids are doing the wrong thing, I've got to discipline them, or I've got to do this. It's like, well, okay, they're clearly not understanding how important this is to me. What can I do to make sure they understand that, why it's important? Or, it's just in all aspects of life. If you take that radical responsibility, it's going to be a huge shift in the way you experience life. A huge shift. You mentioned earlier there's 3 key parts to your journey, and you've talked about 2: awareness and radical responsibility. What's the third?
For me, the third one is self-integrity. So again, it kind of falls in with that radical responsibility in regards to saying what you say you're going to do. If you expect something of somebody else, then you bet your ass you better show up that way as well. I think you can't dictate to others what you want done if you're not willing to do the same. I think that's really important, and it sets a level of trust and maybe even I don't know, just reassurance that when somebody else comes into business with you, or a partnership, whether that be your children and yourself, and you're going to work together to get something done, or whether it's yourself with your employees or your employer, if you're not showing up how you want them to show up, then there's a level of like fuck you energy where you go, you're not doing it, why would I do it? You know, that spitefulness comes out. And so self-integrity is, I think, really, really important for me, because it allows us to follow through with what we said we were going to do, how we said we were going to show up. And yeah.
Love that.
Awesome.
Love that. And the other big takeaway here is as I listen, again, what I'm hearing is such a solutions focus. You've got the solution in mind. You're always looking to either within yourself to provide a solution for yourself, to get yourself out of frustration in a situation, sticking to that word, but always having that solution mindset. I mean, it rings through so clear for me, because I mean, I work with a lot of people, and a lot of people, they want to go focus on the problem. They want to go focus on all the things that are wrong and all the things that are, that could go wrong, et cetera. They're looking to protect themselves. What gets you in this place where quite literally everything that's coming out of your mouth in such an amazing way, it's so very solutions focused? How do you do that?
I think with the understanding that where attention goes, where focus goes, energy flows. So I think for me, like, it just makes sense. When I was teaching a gymnast, I wouldn't say to her, don't bend your legs. I would say to her, straighten your legs. Yeah. I wouldn't say to her, don't look down at the beam. I would say to her, pop your head up, right? It's that kind of like focus on the outcome that you want. Don't focus, like you're saying, on the problem that's at hand, because you're drawing attention to that. If you say to the person who's scared of heights, don't look down, they're going to look down, right? Like, tell them to focus on something. If you tell your child to don't look at the bleeding, they're going to look at the bleeding. Like, it's just focus. Like, it's kind of like the triad of like change your focus, change your physiology, and then change your mindset. But change your goddamn focus, right? Like, stop looking at the shit if that's not where you want your attention to go to or your energy to go to. Instead, look at where you can work forwards. But inside of that, I think comes in, Mick, you said this a little bit before as well, kind of, not just wanting things your way. I think that comes an opportunity for you to look at why you want things that way. And right back in the beginning, we were talking about clearing the slate for other people to grow from a clean slate. And why do you even want it that way? What does it even mean to you to have it that way? Or are you just living on autopilot based on something that you grew up with, based on an environment that you grew up inside of? I have such high work ethic, and because that's the environment I grew up in, that's one of the traits I've chosen to keep. But there are many that I had to assess and be like, oh, that's serving me? Is that actually going to get me to the future that I desire to have? Is that going to help me progress? It's actually not. The inflexibility, the having shit my way all the time, I had to kind of be like, well, do I really need it in 2 days' time, or am I just being pushy? Can't I do something else on the third day? Can't they get it to me on the third day? If it's not due for another month anyway, does it really matter? Or am I just being a bit of a tight ass and want it my way, right? Like, I think kind of when you take radical responsibility, you are forced to go on a journey of self-love and understanding, your own worth and your own deserving. And for most of us, we put our deservingness and our worthiness on an outcome of something that we want our way. And when it doesn't happen that way, we think, well, what's the point? Somebody doesn't appreciate my time, somebody doesn't. And that's not necessarily the case. It's the same as winning. Like, for most people, if you win, it's you're affirming that you're worthy and deserving enough. Whereas when you lose, they don't take it as a lesson and an opportunity to grow. Instead, they just chip away at their self-worth. And for us in our industry, we really say that your self-worth equals your net worth. So for people in business, if you are trying to make success financially, but your self-worth is so low, then it'd be a direct reflection of your net worth.
Absolutely. That is an extremely powerful concept for people to grasp. And in business and any of the people that I work with, that's one of the first things that you look into is their mindset and their self-worth and how they see themselves. Because if you, and it's been said in a number of different ways, one that stuck to me, as a tradie, lots of tradies think they're worth more and they're really skillful. The question you ask, you say, is a tradie that charges $40 an hour, turns up to your house, how would you expect them to show up? Oh, well, you wouldn't really care if they were messy or untidy. They're only $40 an hour. They're cheap. You're going to pay a dude $120 an hour, shows up to your house. How's he going to turn up? If he's untidy, messy, you're not going to see any value in that. So if you want to be worth $120 an hour, show up like you're worth $120 an hour. Dress, have your tools, have your gear ready, like as a basic, like if that's what you want to be and that's what you think you are, well, show up like that. And like listing those traits and how you think that you should, or you're perceived, or you want to be perceived, and then just show up like that. You don't start doing it and then people will see you that value and pay you that value, or they won't have a problem valuing you the way you are. Like that's one of the biggest things is show up how you think you're worth. Not people shouldn't have to validate how you're worth, like you just show up yourself that way. And that's a huge mindset shift. And even with businesses about charging clients, if you want to be worth $3,000 an hour as a business coach, how would a $3,000 an hour business coach show up? Act like that.
Yes.
Like don't act like someone who's on $50 an hour. Like you just got to change that mindset and show up the way you need to show up to be where you want to be, and that changes how you perceive your own value because you're showing up more valuable.
Yeah, guaranteed. If you charge yourself out 120 instead of 40, you're going to show up differently, right? It's a win-win for everybody.
Rightfully so. Definitely. I want to be super respectful of your time today, Sally. And number one, I want to thank you for coming on the show with us. This has been just like I cannot believe 41 minutes gone, poof. It's like, feels like we're just getting started. It feels like there's just so much more to share here. For people to get a hold of you, what is the best way, the best place where someone can go to get more information if they want to find something out, if they want to, look at maybe joining your community? Where can they go and where would they best find you?
Yeah, so we basically just direct everybody to the website because everything that you need to know is on the website, which is WELLthCollectivehub.com. So basically, you can head over there. You can find out what it looks like inside of our hub, where we have our community of like-minded people on their growth journey. And yeah, you can find out what it is that we all do and we are all up to. There's plenty of spaces there for you to connect with us. So thank you. I really appreciate you having me on this call today. It's been super, super fun. And like you said, like 40 minutes and it's gone. And I'm like, I could just keep talking about this stuff all day long.
Absolutely, and it's been absolutely wonderful having you, Sally. Like I said, it's fantastic, and the similarities between whether you're in business or life or you just want to improve things, it's the same concepts you just apply throughout your life. Whether it's a radical responsibility that helps you in your home, helps you in your career, helps you with your health, or whether you're in a leadership position in business, like these same concepts. They're not all just business related, or they're not just all health related. You can apply these things across every area of your life, and it makes a massive improvement. So it doesn't matter what you do or where your focus is, these same concepts work for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'd say unless you go within, you'll always go without.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well done. That's going to be the takeaway for the show right there, right? Unless you go within, you'll go without. And that's huge. That's absolutely huge. Again, Sally, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. Definitely viewers, listeners, go ahead, go check out Sally's website. Amazing information on there. At the very least, can join a collective. And I understand that there was a little extra bonus for anyone that might happen to pop by. Is that correct?
Yes, well, look, February is the month of love with Valentine's Day around the corner. So I said that I would personally send everybody a wellness pack if they were to come on board in the month of February. So thank you guys for letting us share, a bit about what we do. All you need to do is let me know that you were on this call, or at least watch this call, and I will make sure that I send through everybody a wellness pack to start their journey with us.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that with our viewers. That's awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks again for having me on.
With that said, I know we'll be talking to you again soon. Thanks again, Sally.
Thanks, Sally.
See you guys. Thanks.